So what you see in front of you, ladies and gentlemen, is probably one of the most interesting computers that I've purchased on Facebook Marketplace. And in this video, we are going to gut it. We will clean all the components inside of it. We're gonna give it a fresh new look. It's a whole new aesthetic, a whole new design. And then we're gonna add a little bit to it because this has no graphics card, the RAM needs to be upgraded. There's just a whole lot that this computer needs. But you're gonna lose your mind when you see how this CPU cooler is fastened to this motherboard. So a little backstory on this computer. When I did go and meet the gentleman to pick this thing up, he told me that it was a build for his brother, and I don't think that they really knew how to build a computer because every fan in here is zip tied on. The power supply has no 8-pin connector on it, and you need an 8-pin to power this motherboard. So they really had no idea what they were doing. And that's okay, most people don't, but they gave it a shot. Now, one thing I don't like about this computer is how they fastened the CPU cooler to this motherboard. And I'm gonna turn this around. I've never seen this before, but these are nuts and bolts. They bolted this CPU cooler to this motherboard. And I'm fearful that it damaged this motherboard or the CPU or something. I'm hopeful that it's still functional, but who knows? Because when you have the backplate on, the motherboard doesn't even sit flush, so it's not even mounted appropriately to the case. Now, it is a B450A Pro Max motherboard, and it does have a Ryzen 5 3600 in it, and that's the only reason I bought it, because there's nothing else in here. Now, I am gonna have to change out this power supply. This is going to be getting a fresh new look. It's going into a brand new case. We are going for another Panda build, a black and white build, and it's gonna have quite a bit of RGB. It should look pretty good by the time we finish it, but before I can go ahead and do anything, this needs to be taken apart, and we need to assess the damage that bolting this motherboard, the CPU cooler to this motherboard actually caused. Because if this board is broken, then this video might actually just be done. Now that was absolutely the fastest disassembly we've ever had on the channel. But here is our board, and unfortunately, what I thought I saw is actually correct. It is slightly bent. Now that may not hurt this board, but you never know. Hopefully everything in here is intact. Now some of the pins in the back are a little bit bent, but it's nothing too crazy. I think that this board will work once I'm able to get the bolts out of it. But we are going to take out this heatsink. I have plans for that later. But the one thing that I thought we might be able to keep was the power supply, and that's just not going to be the case. Like I said, there is no 8-pin connector for the motherboard, and then you're not going to have power to your graphics card because I picked out a good graphics card for this system. And something interesting, there are spliced wires, exposed wires here. That's just dangerous. That's just why? This supply is made by Powerman. It is a 350 watt power supply, and it's just complete trash. So what we're gonna have to do now is we're gonna have to get the bolts off of our motherboard. So let's just do that. So in the comment section below, please tell me if you've ever had to use ratchet and a wrench in order to get your CPU cooler off. Gee whiz, they used an astronomical amount of thermal paste. Oh, the reason it's bolted on is because it doesn't have a back plate. Man, those are $8. All right, so that just lets me know I need to buy a $8 back plate, which I can get them one day shipped. It'll be here later on tonight, and we can go ahead and get this finished. Now, in the meantime, I will go ahead and I will clean up this board while we wait for a backplate to show up. hopefully they're still doing 1-day shipping on those. I bought one for a build a couple months ago. So I ordered the backplate to come in for the motherboard. It will be here tonight, so fortunately I will be able to finish this build this evening. I am, however, very concerned about the CPU in here. It's got a lot of gashes in the top of it, and that tells me that this thing has been beat up. I did inspect it for missing and bent pins, and I did find some bent pins on here. So it does sit in the socket appropriately, so hopefully that is a good indication that we are gonna be all right. But who knows, this might be the first defeat that this channel has ever gotten. But in the meantime, while I'm waiting for the backplate to arrive, I did pull out our graphics card that we will be using, and it is a GeForce GTX 1660 Super. I found this online for $120, and I went and picked it up the other day. I think it will be a good addition to this build. It will complement it pretty nice. And then something that we're gonna do, because it is gonna be a Panda build, a lot like our dumpster computer build, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna paint this shroud. So while we're waiting, I'm gonna pull the shroud and the back plate off, and we can dust out the inside of this a little bit, see if it needs to be deep cleaned, maybe repasted, and then we will go ahead and spray paint this shroud. All right, so our AM4 backplate arrived. So now that we have the backplate for here, we can go ahead and start assembling this computer. Now let's quickly run through the things that are going into this case. We are keeping the motherboard and the CPU of this unit. We are going to be putting a 512 gigabyte NVMe in here. We are going to be putting 16 gigs of T-Force RAM because it's white and it's RGB, and why not? We are also going to be using a power supply that I had laying around. It is a Thermaltake 600 watt power supply. It'd be more than enough for the system, and it has the correct connections that we are going to need to get the system done. Now, I don't like the cable coloring, obviously, but what can you do? It was downstairs in the garage. Needed to figure out a way to use it and get it out of my way. For CPU cooling, we are going to be going with the ID Cooling FrostFlow X24. It's out of the box, but this is what it's going to be. It's right over here. This is going to be a nice CPU cooler for this unit because it is inexpensive. It is a 240mm radiator, and it'll do a perfect job of keeping this processor nice and cold. We did go ahead and we painted our GPU white. So now our 1660 Super is going to match the build. I like the back plate, it's nice and white, and then the front's white, and then the GeForce GTX logo detached with screws, so we took that off and then we put it back on. So now you have a pretty cool looking graphics card that will match the build. And for our case, we are going to be going with this all white Antec case. It has two 240 fans in the front, RGB, and one in the back, so you get 3 fans included with this. It is nice. It looks a lot like the Zellman cases that we've used in the past, but it is white, and it's going to do a fantastic job in making this computer look great as long as the motherboard and CPU still work. So without further ado, let's put on some music and let's throw this thing together so that we can try to turn it on and see if this thing actually works. So I'm gonna be 100% honest, I don't think that this computer will work. I think that this is gonna be the first failure on the channel, and I hate to be negative, but due to the fact that the bolts that were inside of the CPU cooler on this were putting so much pressure on it that the board was bending, and the fact that the CPU had a bunch of bent pins, the top part of the CPU was all scratched up, I'm gonna be honest, I don't think that this computer was treated well at all in its life, and if it doesn't give us an image, I'm really not gonna be shocked. And if it doesn't give us an image, the only things to replace are the motherboard and the CPU, and in which case I've just built a brand new computer from scratch anyways, so regardless, we will get it to run. This will run at some point. It may not be with this hard drive and CPU, but let's pray. Let's see if it will turn on. I mean, I'm just gonna hit the button and we're gonna see what happens. Awesome, so nothing. The switch, the darn switch, man. Here we go again, let's do this. All right, well, we got power. Come on, I'm coming around. Coming around with y'all. Well, it looks really good. All right, let's see if we get an image. If the CPU's not working, we shouldn't get an image. Well, we got one. No way. No way. Dude, you can't. I can't believe it works. Hallelujah. It works and it looks pretty good. The cables for that power supply need to be changed for sure, because they just look like an eyesore, but for the rest of this computer, it looks pretty fantastic. That's probably the loudest AIO I've ever heard though. Oh well. So I'll see you in a second, and we'll play a couple games on here, and let's see how well this thing can play some games.
seconds remain. UAV overhead.
Kill people before, haven't you? You're used to it.
We do what we must to survive.
Animals, I get. They're food. Draugr, they're supposed to be dead. But people, they're trying to survive too.
Close your heart to it. On our journey, we will be attacked by all manner of creature. Close your heart to their desperation. Close your heart to their suffering. Do not allow yourself to feel for them. They will not feel for you.
I understand.
So considering the fact that I thought that this computer was going to be dead in the water with a broken motherboard and broken CPU, that is not the case. We were able to get some pretty decent frames in some games, and you know, in the newer games it struggled a little bit, but that was to be expected. This computer holds up, and I'd have to say I think it's probably one of the better looking computers that we have built on the channel. Now, if you do want to check out any of the items that we put inside this computer, there will be links in the description down below to everything that we used to put this computer together. They were all relatively inexpensive, and I think that the total build cost for this entire computer was only around $400. And as you can see on the monitor, we are at 8,240 subs, and at 15,000 subs, I'm gonna give away a computer that's worth way more than $400, and all you have to do is click the card up above to watch that video so you can make sure you're entered to win a computer that you don't have to pay anything for. But as always, guys, no matter where you are in the world, I hope that you are having a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next video.